Hi folks, Jason here. In this demonstration I'm just going to be showing you how I took a photograph that I took recently whilst out walking with my dogs of a log, and then how I basically converted that using a bit of photo bashing and a little bit of illustration to create the scene that you see here. I was quite inspired by it. I like these little scenes in woodland where you kind of see something that you could sort of, make kind of epic, just given a few twists. So here's the log in question. So yeah, just pretty standard type of log, some moss on there, and I took some pictures of it, which you'll see in a minute in Photoshop. And I think you'll just see it. Go. I think it's this page here. So I just took a series of pictures. Yeah, just various stages, and I kind of picked one of those, and then basically started photo bashing with it. So what I started doing soon is I go and select one of the photographs, and using the polygonal tool, I start cutting around the log and basically fit it into a new document, and then sort of start working into it. So I decided just to kind of blur the background for now, and played around with some of the darkness and also some of the levels as well. I still wasn't sure where this was going to go, but it was mainly just trying to kind of get a feel. So I've got the photograph in there. I started doing a little bit of illustration, putting some trees in there and copying parts of the picture, collapsing it down onto the same layer, and then just working something in there. Now this is just just a kind of block in, really. At the end of the day, it does change a little bit from this. But essentially that's it, just trying to kind of get an idea of how I want the kind of picture to go. So it's kind of like a close-up of this kind of scene. And then I was playing around with some of the filters, the dry brush effect, trying to give it a more illustrative effect, and then I go around it again, blur the background on that. And then I still wanted a bit more contrast, so I decided to kind of create a black and white layer with a lot of contrast, overlaid it onto the image, and then again playing around with the exposure and just overlaying the black and white image on top of the color image, just to kind of give it that kind of contrast. And again, just playing around here, just seeing what works, what doesn't. Very often, you've got to try these things out, just see what's kind of working. I think I was trying to play around with this kind of nighttime scene by duplicating the layer, but it wasn't quite working out, so I decided to kind of scrub over it and start again. And again, so I was starting to get an idea that I'm going to have a character, a sort of fantasy character who's going to be sort of walking along this log, and possibly either looking out or meeting something, so. But I wanted it so there was this kind of light coming from behind the log or like at the side, and you can see there it's just kind of picking up bits of the moss and little flecks of dust or whatever it might be, dirt in the air. And then, but I think at this stage it was really like it was starting to kind of come together. I was starting to get like a really firm idea about where I wanted this to kind of go. And I was quite happy with the results so far. The background I still wasn't quite happy with, but I just thought I'd get the central kind of bit of action done, the focus, and then sort of work from there really with the background. Again, what I did was I copied the layer and then blurred it out. So I want to kind of create this like focus with a bit of blur around it, so I could focus on the character. And then start blocking the character in there. It's effectively just a silhouette. Put a few highlights on there, and also put like a cape on the character as well. So this is me just trying to kind of get an idea, sort of sculpting the character, if you will, and just seeing what I was kind of happy with the silhouette. Decided to kind of put this kind of caped character, and yeah, I had him kind of like holding a staff. I think I did away with the staff in the end and just kind of just settled on this kind of glowing ball, which you'll see in a minute. But yeah, just really just working on putting a little bit of a highlight on there. You can see there on the legs and on the head, so like there's light. So I had this idea that it was going to be like a sort of butterfly type character, something like that, or some kind of like, you know, sprite going through the forest, and this character is kind of going to greet this character, or either giving or receiving this kind of energy. So that was the kind of the main kind of character done there, and then I started thinking about putting like this kind of butterfly in there. It wasn't quite working out. I wasn't really happy with it. I kind of put it in there, and I thought, yeah. So I was playing around with some of the contrasts, things like that, and the size of it as well. I thought, well, maybe I could try and create some emissive light with it, and yeah, playing around with it that way. But and then, you know, having this kind of like humanoid kind of character, like I say, some kind of sprite, some kind of, you know, forest spirit type thing. And then it started to kind of turn a little bit angelic, and it wasn't quite what I was going for. So there's a lot of chopping and changing that kind of goes on here. I was kind of thinking of making it kind of slightly insect-like with antenna, but that wasn't quite working out. And then yeah, just try again, you know, just playing around, just seeing what I could kind of achieve. I was quite happy with that, but I still wasn't fully convinced with this the little character that I created. So I decided to, although I kind of stayed with that temporarily, I kind of like rubbed it out and then kept the wings and then worked into it again. So it was very much like just chopping and changing. It's about what feels right when you're doing stuff like this. It's like what you're trying to achieve. So don't be, you know, when you're doing stuff like this, don't be afraid just to kind of like scrub things out and just start again, basically. So it's starting to kind of come together, but it's still not quite there. And although it's started to kind of take shape, I know what kind of character I wanted to go for. But I think that at this stage it starts kind of coming together really now, and I've got this kind of character. Put a bit of a blur on there, a bit of motion blur, and yeah, still just kind of playing around with it. But yeah, so it just chops and changes. But I think this is kind of getting closer to where I kind of wanted it. I still wasn't quite happy with some of the arm movements on there, but yeah, as you can see, it's just kind of really just kind of playing around, adding stuff, taking it away. But the final little design, it's actually quite simple, but sometimes it takes you quite a long time just to kind of get to where you need to kind of get to, even if it's a simple idea. So. It's kind of getting really sort of closer. I'm just kind of working into it a little bit, giving it a bit more shape, giving the legs a bit more shape, and the head and the arms and the wings. And then once I've kind of got it sorted, I then move on to kind of give it this kind of emissive glow. I just use a soft brush with a bit of white, and I take the opacity down and then basically just dust over the top. But that's coming up. Again, that's kind of what I was wanting to achieve. And I still wasn't quite happy also with the background, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but I thought the character needs some kind of company, so I created this kind of like, it's not really a horse, it's more of a kind of like, the idea I had was like something more like a rat and a horse combined. So it's kind of got this kind of like quite narrow head and long kind of tail, but it's kind of got horse-like. So I'm just going to sketch that in there, and just, again, mainly a silhouette, but just kind of trying to work really on the profile, on the form. So just putting sort of highlights on there. Again, I'm just sort of working this out. Again, I know what I'm wanting to go for, but I'm not entirely sure of like how I'm going to achieve it. So I'm just having a bit of fun, really, just playing around with some of the form. I've got the kind of straps for the for the character. Sort of take those away, and I think add them back a little bit more, adding a bit more shape to the body, to the legs. I wasn't really interested in making this super refined and super rendered. I kind of wanted to kind of keep this kind of like sketchy kind of sort of sketchy form about it, because sometimes I think it has a bit more life. Rendered stuff is good, but sometimes, you know, having something that's a bit more sketchy, I think it's got a bit more life about it. So yeah, so I've kind of generally got the kind of character down here. I'm just putting a bit of highlight on the tail, and also there's the sort of the saddle for the character as well. I kind of did a bit of work on that, and then kind of went on something else, and then kind of worked on it again, and again just adding stuff, taking it away, rubbing it out, and again just trying to kind of, I think it was getting a little bit lost, so kind of added a bit more of a background to it, and then just kind of worked into it. So it's nice, you know, when you're doing stuff like this, to kind of see how it evolves, you know, whilst you're doing it, and you can also get ideas, particularly with silhouettes. You can get some really interesting ideas about, you know, with shapes and, you know, and forms and things like that. And I think that character's pretty much done there. And then I was going to kind of end it there. I wasn't quite happy with the background, but I thought, okay, I'll sign off on it, put a little signature on there. But then I decided to kind of take it a bit of a step further, and then work into the background. So I was looking at some reference and things like that. I wanted more of a, it just didn't look very foresty. So I thought I'd kind of put some trees, you know, emphasize the kind of tree silhouettes in the background. So I decided to yeah, just kind of work into it a little bit more, and just sort of see where it goes, really. Also, I could see, like in the foreground, it was probably a little bit light, so I was kind of darkening that up a little, again, just to kind of bring your eye to focus on the character. And then I just bring in this kind of like light in, this kind of, I'm not sure exactly what colour, it's kind of like a turquoise kind of colour. Again, coming in, this kind of light coming in from this kind of forest, and again, just making it sort of fairly vague. These kind of old oak trees type thing, whatever, and some shrub, you know, in the background. But again, it's quite abstract. I didn't want to go into too much detail with it. I did end up putting some sort of toadstools, I think, in the on the right, just to maybe, you know, just give a suggestion of like it's a dark, dank kind of like forest, very gloomy. But then, you know, to help it kind of like emphasize, you know, the light, you know, which is in the kind of center of the scene. And so here I'm just really just playing around with some of the more subtle tones and creating this kind of mist, you know, this kind of sort of woodland kind of mist, murky kind of mist effect. And then just using the smudge tool. Just to move things around, and again create some stuff in the foreground there, just some highlights of bits of moss and things like that. And basically we're approaching the end of the picture now, but anyway, it's I think it turned out quite well. I was quite pleased with it, and you know, it's interesting what you can kind of achieve just simply by not necessarily having much of a roadmap, but just kind of just seeing how a picture evolves and just really playing around, really, not having any sort of definite ideas. But hopefully it kind of gives the that that kind of magical quality across. Whenever I'm walking in woodland, I'm always kind of inspired by things like this, because you can kind of see, I see scenes within objects, you know, particularly like logs and things like that. So hopefully I've captured the magic of that. So I think that's it, folks. So yeah, so thanks for watching, and hopefully you've enjoyed the process with concept art. And yeah, if you've got any comments or suggestions, you know, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye for now.